Well, thank you very much for agreeing to this interview about how we implement restorative justice alongside of the multi-tiered system supports programs like RTI and PBIS, and how the two, rather than being in opposition, are actually can blend together quite nicely. And your school is doing a wonderful job of doing that, and I understand you'll even provide us with some insights as well as perhaps an example of how that can be done. But first, could you please introduce yourselves and your role at the school?
My name is Janet Jezanowski. I am the 6th grade special education teacher.
And I'm Laura Heater. I'm a behavior support aide in the building, and I'm newly part of our restorative justice team. I went in February, I believe it was, to the training with Kate Pranis in New York. So I'm just starting to kind of get on board with everything and learning.
Wonderful. And thank you both for being here. I wondered if you could share with us a little bit about and perhaps an example of how restorative justice practices can be used at a tier 1 or level 1.
Okay. We've sort of worked. We've combined our efforts. Miss J, I don't think she minded me sharing, has a very difficult class, and I was excited to learn these practices and implement them in her room to see what kind of changes, positive changes we could hopefully make. So we've done quite a few community building circles in Janet's room, and we have found that the kids and the behaviors have changed incredibly, that they're very respectful of the process. Even the physical aspects of the circle, putting the chairs around, away from the desk, using a centerpiece, using a talking piece, all of a sudden they hone in on what we're doing when they may have been scattered all over the place.
I would say that when we, as Laura said, I have a very difficult classroom. When we set up those chairs and the circle begins, you just notice a sense of like calmness or, much more respect than we normally have in the classroom for each other than we do when we're just sitting there during classroom instruction. So I think it's worked very well in my classroom. We built a lot of relationships, a lot of these students' attitudes towards each other and staff have changed.
Well, you bring up a really important point, and that is the ritual creates a certain climate in the school. And when I say ritual, the placing of the chairs so they're not behind desks, the use of the talking stick, and following those ground rules creates a real different climate than you might have otherwise. And the students become very much used to that and in fact, like the process. And I appreciate you bringing that up. I think that's real important. Could you tell me maybe an example of how you've used the community building circles?
We've used community building circles for several different times. When a student has been absent for a significant amount and is re-entering the classroom, or we've had a break and it's been a very difficult morning trying to get everyone adjusted back to school. And
new students, we welcome new students in the circle.
And I guess, as Janet said, we've really seen relationships build because of the rituals that take place and how different it is from just sitting in your chair and learning academics. We've seen kids embrace even just the centerpiece, where I think we used a book once that said "You matter," and it was surprising how many kids just even noticed that. And when we came away, we always do a closing. The whole tenor of the class for the rest of the day is just changed.
Very calming.
Well, it's wonderful to hear that, because that's the purpose of these circles, and creates a wholly different climate of respect and calm, like you say, and harmony. Thank you for sharing what you have about how you've used particularly community building circles at what we would call a level 1. And best wishes as you enter the new school year.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
so
very
much.
much.